Well, in the meantime, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says that Tehran will continue to support Syria. He condemned any aggression against Middle Eastern countries, including Syria. He said military action against Damascus will be harmful not only to regional countries, but also to the allies of the U.S. President Rouhani said U.S. President Barack Obama's decision to seek congressional approval before launching a military strike shows that Washington's war rhetoric lacks legitimacy both at home and abroad. The Iranian president blamed foreign intervention and support for insurgents as the causes of the current crisis in Syria. Political commentator Ghanbar Naderi joins us in the studio to tell us what he thinks about Iran's president's statements here. Well, Ghanbar Naderi, take your pick. A number of statements made there, all pretty logical to me. The one that I find interesting is how it's going to hurt U.S. allies in the region were this military intervention to take place.
Well covered. It's an interesting situation. It's kind of a deja vu for many people, because if we want to know what's going to happen to Syria or the region if the U.S. decides to attack Syria militarily, we don't need to go far. We only need to look at the situation in Afghanistan and Iraq. Iran 10 years ago, 12 years ago, last decade, warned the Allied forces, the US-led coalition of the so-called wheeling, of the possible consequences of attacking Afghanistan and Iraq. Iran said that the consequences will be terrible and immense, and it will take hold of the whole region. But nobody listens. We only had, everybody remembers, we only had Al-Qaeda terrorist groups only in Afghanistan. Now we have Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, across the Persian Gulf region, in Yemen, we have it now in Syria, in Egypt, you name it, everywhere we have it. That's what Iran, that's the warning that Iran gave more than 10 years ago. Nobody took note of it. Nobody cared about what the Iranian government had to say at that point in time. But I think at least the British government and the British lawmakers have learned the lessons the hard way. They learned from their past mistakes. That's why they said no to another aggression against another Muslim country in the Middle East, because they knew that there will be similar consequences if they join forces with the U.S. government to attack Syria. But Iran says that is willing to help politically and internationally to resolve the crisis in Syria, and also will do everything to stop it, as Mr. Rouhani said. But that doesn't mean that Iran is scared of the American military machine. Iran knows that the same thing will happen if they attack Syria, so Iran will sit down, relax, lay back, and watch the Americans at the mercy of currents in the region.
Well, at the same time, you're having, Secretary of State John Kerry making the case. You're having Kerry, Hagel, Dempsey trio testifying before the Foreign Affairs Committee. Tell us about that. Rouhani has said that, this lacks legitimacy if they're trying to get the Americans' approval, basically, of course, through Congress at this point.
Well, it was very interesting argument last night John Kerry made to the Committee of the Foreign Policy of the Senate. Everything that he said, in less than a minute or two, he contradicted his own statements, and it was so funny. I came up with hundreds of different points to mention, but we don't have any time here that much. But I will just point out some of the important points that he made. Mr. Kerry said that only 3 people in the past 100 years have used chemical weapons. One was Hitler. The second one was Saddam, that used it against the Iranian forces and the Iranian citizen and his own citizens. And the third one was Mr. Bashar Assad. But excuse me, America also used chemical weapons. We know that Americans used Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. We know that the American forces used depleted uranium and white phosphorus to attack many targets in Fallujah within the Iraqi territory. So it's not just these 3 people. If he is trying to come up with some kind of excuses and explanation, America also used chemical weapons. And at the same time, he said that this is not about a red line that Obama is drawing. This is about the international community's red line, about prohibition of chemical attacks and chemical weapons or weapons of mass destruction. Okay, if that is the case, and if you are honest, so why don't you let the UN Security Council decide what to do next? You shouldn't act as if you have the mandate to act as global police to come to the region and attack another sovereign nation such as Syria. And also, funny thing that they ask some of the senators, some of the congressmen ask Mr. Kerry and his team, the other members of his committee, that if they know how many, if they have any rough idea about how many people, how many members of the opposition and the al-Nusra or the terrorist groups are inside Syria, they had no answer. If that is the case, if they don't know how many terrorist members or Al-Qaeda members are within the Syrian territory, how come they are so confident that they know it very well, they know better than anyone else that it was the Syrian government that used chemical weapons against its own people and not the terrorist groups or the al-Nusra? We know that 1 month ago, more than 1 month ago, if I'm not wrong, it was the American government and the officials themselves that condemned the terrorist groups for using chemical weapons and chemical attacks against the civilians inside Syria. Why are they so confident now this time? This time it's not them and it is the Syrian government. They have no answer for that. You know why? Because they don't know how to prove it.
Very good questions there. Thank you so much for making those points. Babar Nadari, political commentator in the studios. Thank you.